And hello, everybody. So wherever you are, it might be morning or evening. So welcome to the F Show. And today's F Show is really important. We are celebrating the legacy of Mama Winnie Mandela, somebody who has really been part of the history and legacy of South Africa. And our guests are creatives who have been inspired by the legacy of Mama Winnie through music, art, books, social movements. They have kept her legacy burning, bright, bold, and loud. Mama Winnie once said, "I am the product of my masses of this country and the product of the enemy." And I think it is in that detail, in that layeredness, that we understand the legacy of our mother. And I would like to start with Levu, who has done an amazing work just recently, a wonderful conference in which the title had Mama Winnie's legacy and the continuation of all the women who came through that process, this level, which was just so inspiring. It was so wonderful. I'm going to allow Justine just to show us 2 clips before we come directly to you, Level.
Thank you.
Zulu yemfihlakalo, Zulu yesimanga ezalise umhlaba.
In May 1977, you are informed that you have been banished. You will make your home in the Orange Free State, in a tiny town called Brantford. The house where you live in Brantford is not even a metaphorical island. It is not on a large plot of land or on a farm so remote that it may as well be in the middle of an ocean. Instead, the small 3-roomed house sits alongside a row of others that look exactly the same.
Thank you, Justine. I think we'll go to the next clip. Thank you.
Public, visible uprising by Black women that shifted the national narrative.
So Thandiso's music at that particular point in time allowed us to be able to say goodbye.
We'll now call Thandiso Mazwai to render one item, please. One item.
To sing at Mama Winnie's funeral was the most heartbreaking thing I've ever had to do. And to sing in front of her coffin, it was just unbearable.
Wow. Level, talk to us.
Thank you for those. Thank you that I'm also in the company of so many brilliant minds and thought leaders today. So I acknowledge the presence of everybody. So the reason why we had Reabua Critical Dialogues, firstly, let me introduce Tekano. Tekano is a health equity leadership development organization. And our principles are, we find ourselves, or we anchor ourselves on the principles of Pan-Africanism, feminism, and decoloniality. And what was very important about these dialogues was to give us an opportunity to reflect on the role and the place of Black women in the political economy of South Africa, and how, as Black women, historically were, inconvenient appendages of to the apartheid system. And that the only professions that Black women could enter into was social work, nursing, and teaching, so the care professions. And we know that the majority of Black women then were domestic workers and really were left to care work. The other important factor about Mamu Winnie in particular is the erasure of women in the way we recollect history, and we also even account for the contribution, both in thought, in labor, in discourse. And through her life, we have seen how the apartheid government, and with the first clip, we showed her being banished in Brantford, took what was deemed a defiant woman, because patriarchy and racism and capitalism collude, to put women in a particular place, and how she was banished in this town with the intention of breaking her. But we also wanted to celebrate her defiance in the way that she broke Brantford, in the way that she got into Brantford, and that she organized with others. It's very interesting how even in the retelling of her story, that is why the whole issue of erasure was important, that very few of us know of her as a medical social worker and a professional in her own right, and an activist in her own right. And how we have seen over the years that who she was got eroded, not only and distorted, not only in the apartheid era, but also by her own comrades. And so for us, when we look at a decolonial way of looking at our own history, a feminist lens at which we look at health equity in South Africa, it was very important that we basically use her symbolically to talk about how women at this particular point in time are erased, and the narrative is distorted to fit a particular narrative. So what we did was to commission 5 films. 2 of them, and the one on Brantford was one of the 2 that really dealt with the question of erasure and banishment. And each film was accompanied by a panel of amazing speakers. And it was very deliberate for us, because all of what these speakers did was to actually bring themselves back into history. Not that they are not contributing to the history, not that they are not contributing to academia, but because we see even today how the contribution of Black women is continually erased. So we had Zikhona Valela and Dr. Atambile Masola, who were on a panel addressing Black women resistance and persistence, joined by Sipho Mthatha, who was also very, very active in Section 27 and in the treatment action campaign, rather, and is also a member of the Tekano board. We also looked at social work as resistance, and we had Kitumetse Mutwatse, who is from the Black Women Caucus, in discussion with Sisonke Msimang, who wrote a book, especially after a book that she wrote after the passing of Mamu Winnie, recontextualizing her role and her activism. And then we had another film and a discussion called by Sitandi Weyeni, Dr. Salima Viliani and Dr. Isanda Benya, who spoke of the historical and contemporary connections between mining and land, and how those both exploited and erased Black women. And we had a beautiful film about Loretta Ngobo. In her own right, she's written books. And for us, it was very important that we document and curate artwork. And I hope people who visit the Tekano website, who look for Riabua Critical Dialogues will see it. And it's very, 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 very important that we begin to understand, like we have said before, that memory is a weapon, and to begin to rewrite her story into the recollection of what we have in South Africa. And we saw that, by the way, we were led by young Black feminists, as was indicated in the other clip that you shared by Lebo Mashide, that in fact, after the day that she was, she died, we had so many of the typical mainstream media pulling up stories of this flawed character, as if we don't celebrate mediocre men, as if we don't celebrate men who have done amazing things. We've got F.W. de Klerk in this country, who sat and presided over an apartheid government, getting a Nobel Peace Prize that he shares with Madiba. But how dare we remember a woman without dredging? And it was Black radical feminists who changed the narrative and said, we shall remember her. You are not going to erase her and make her an appendage to a man that you have basically branded and made the darling of South Africa. You are also not going to bring this rift between who in your eyes was good and who in your eyes was bad, without talking about their complexity. And we have seen how memory has done it. Even when we remember Madiba, we will not talk about him as somebody who advocated for Mkhonto we Sizwe and was quite radical. We like the teddy bear, we like knitting blankets, we like doing things that is basically making others comfortable. We're not thinking, and we don't even want to tell about his story of his radicalism, who was willing to take up arms to liberate this country. But what we also do, because capitalism and patriarchy collude to oppress women, is that we then tarnish this woman. I must say that, just as I conclude this part, for those that what was amazing in one of the films on Brentford was Mamunora, who was the woman who befriended her and was actually, despite the fact that the security police had warned them that they dare not get close to her because she's a communist. And this is a woman who put herself at risk. And she simply says in the film that I did so because I saw a woman in adversity. I saw a woman who needed help. And despite what we were told, she speaks of their houses being fenced so that on the copy in Brentford, where the secret branch or security branch used to sit, that you would they would watch with binoculars, that the yards were kept. Winnie herself in one of the films speaks of being banished, being in exile, being in prison, you know, at your own expense. But the point I'm making is the fact that despite that, she started an early childhood development center, a fact that I must admit sitting with you today that I did not know. Because what the apartheid government did is that, and the white media, is that it weaponized Stompie. It took one child, as if the conditions that Black children lived on were not violent themselves, to tarnish her, and will not tell her that, in fact, Brentford started winning awards because of the ECD training, that even in her punishment, she encouraged women like Mamunora to go through. And more importantly, she was there. You see the films, you see her there, you see her mobilizing. And they don't tell you that it is the secret branch that bombed where Millie Meal was kept. You don't hear that. And so the idea of how do we remember and who do we allow to write about our icons and what we then allow to pass as fact is very important. So for us, in memory of Mamu Winnie, this was a political act, this was a radical act, but this was an act that reminds us that we are the ones that we have been waiting for, and the retelling of our history. If we do not allow Black scholars, Black women scholars, to basically decolonize the kind of knowledge and media that we have, that we are actually not going to succeed. And that, for me, is documenting and putting in archive, and putting films and getting thought in places where we are able to basically show what we are capable of. We cannot say we honor the memory of an icon like Mama Winnie and continue to have her story and her contribution being told in the way that classically in the mainstream is being kept. So she gave us a legacy. She gave us the gift of speaking out against injustice, even when we are scared. The secret police, the secret branch, the entire apartheid machinery could not keep her down. We owe it to the young people to show them that you can stand up and speak truth to power. But before they do that, we need to allow ourselves to say, never again will the contribution of women, particularly Black women, be silenced. So for us, when we say Reabua, we are very intentional, meaning we are speaking is that our stories, our lives are going to be told by us in a manner that honors us. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Lebo, because that is what I felt when I watched it. I wonder if Justin is able to just bring up a link of that Facebook stream. And as I thank you, because also what we have, luckily, is Mama Winnie's book, 491 Days. And we have the documentary, which is something else of hers, her own documentary in her own words. And as you say, that, you know, through Stratcom, certain stories were pushed, certain voices were heard. And it was post her death that we learned about who she really was. And the good thing was that all the women came together. You remember, everybody wore their dukes and they all kind of said, you know, she did not die, she multiplied. And I want to thank you and Takano because you showed us that. I had goosebumps as I watched those films. I was so proud when I listened to the women speak. It was truly Black women talking about Black women. It was so affirming, it was so special. And I really want to thank you, Lebo, and also Takano, and for tonight, because, you know, it was a kind of a last minute that you allowed yourself to be part of this conversation, because it's so important that we recognize the work you are doing and the people you brought together. So I do want, we will have the link so people can go out there and follow, at least follow that live stream, because I watched it and I just, you know, I was mesmerized. And as you say, the other important thing was younger women. It was passing the baton on. And you know, those films were fantastic. And as a filmmaker, to watch those films by young women was just phenomenal. Thank you so much for sharing, Lebo.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank
you, Dr. Thank you, ma.
So we're going to show the extract. You were talking about Sisonke, and she can't be with us today, but she did read an extract from her book. So we'll show the book and we'll just play the extract that she wrote for us.
Winnie was every woman. This is why her articulate rage, her belligerence, and her persistence were so potent. She found a way to voice all the anger South African women felt. When she pushed a police officer or lashed out sarcastically at the Prime Minister, she was doing so on our behalf. She spoke to white men in authority the way others wanted to but couldn't for fear of losing their jobs, getting beaten or arrested. Winnie said what she wanted and she suffered the consequences, but she remained unbowed. Often, because of her public stature, she got away with things that would have earned anyone else a harsh rebuke. We adored her for having the guts to do what we could not do, to say the things we could not say. We cheered when she said, "I am a living symbol of whatever is happening in the country. I am a living symbol of the white man's fear." This is why she became such a powerful symbol of resistance for Black women across South Africa and ultimately Black women across the African diaspora. Many of the new generation of more radical men saw Winnie as an icon too. She did radical well, dressing the part, her fist always in the air. There are countless clips on YouTube of Winnie Mandela giving the Black Power sign. She would roar, "Amandla!" at a crowd and listen with satisfaction as the crowd roared back, "Aware too." She was fearless, and she made others forget their fears too, inspiring insurrection. Right after her husband was sent to prison, Winnie was quoted in the media saying, "They think because they have put my husband on an island that he will be forgotten. They are wrong. The harder they try to silence him, the louder I will become." She had been too loud, and so when she needed us to defend her, we were loud too, singing her praises. I cannot pretend otherwise. I am interested in redeeming my Winnie. But acknowledging her role in the fight for freedom and the violence done to her is impossible without acknowledging her own violence against others, the kidnappings, beatings, and murders carried out on her orders. This book is an attempt to grapple with her complexity, to write into her contradictions rather than to shy away from them. This is a generosity seldom afforded women. Women are supposed to be neat and clean, and yet Winnie's story is messy and not straightforward. She heals and she wounds. Much like the country for which she fought, Winnie was both dazzling and confounding. When the world relegates her to her ex-husband's shadow, it is also relegating South African women's stories to the nation's shadows. When it denies her story, it denies the stories of countless women. I want to bring her back into view, and in so doing, I want to bring us all back into the picture, to tell a bigger, richer, and far more inclusive story. In the end, I don't care whether you love her or hate her, but I want you to know that she lived and that she fought, that Winnie Madikizela Mandela was here.
Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So now we have, Kim, are you saying that you are ready to go? Okay, okay.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. I started to speak, and then I realized that I had to pay homage using my gift, the God-given gift. I didn't earn it. I didn't work. I didn't pay for it. I just woke up and I had it. And that's how I see the gift that was given to Mama Winnie Mandela, the spirit that was unrelenting, the spirit that would not die, even as she died in her dying bed. Her spirit would not die, and it lives on today. I want to begin by reading a letter written to Mama Winnie Mandela in the year that I was meant to see her in person. That never happened. I was just a couple months shy of her transition into the realm of ancestors. And I want to read that because I want you all to know the sentiment of our organization as we globally celebrate her. And it reads, "It excites my pity to know that the next generation of sheroes will undoubtedly study, embody, and cherish like never before the unrelenting sheroism found in the brilliant life force that was and is Mama Winnie Mandela. On behalf of all sheroes, a global sisterhood modeled after her legacy, with a mission to protect our womb, sister, and nation of women, I am sending the sincerest comfort and thanks to the Mandela family for allowing and illuminating Mama, the purest light that is an inspiration behind our work and Superlash Power. When invited by the South African Shiro host Juanita Mathams to the 100-year celebration of the late Madiba being held the September of 2019 during South Africa's Heritage Month, my simple question was, what about Winnie? Isn't she still alive? The overwhelming response was yes, and we will celebrate at her home because Mama will like that. My heart sings life today, knowing that the answer I received to my question just one short week ago is still true now. Mama Winnie is unfortunately more alive now in the hearts of sheroes globally than she has ever been. We will erect institutions in her name and teach women and the girl child to be silent like her hard as a rock mantra, Mandela. We will learn from her life what it takes to endure the long, thankless walk to freedom, knowing that in the African worldview, you do not truly die until you are forgotten. As a Black African woman and Shiro living in the diaspora, I call all women from East Transeki to East Baltimore, USA, to live in the light of her shining example of womanism, motherhood, and Shiroism, indelibly imprinted on the fabric of our Shiro sisterhood identity. How could we ever forget Mama Winnie Mandela, Amandla? I wanted to read that because our letter, the one we wrote for the memorial and celebration of her life in her transition, is still as true as it is then, as it was then in our organization now. We're here this weekend in Kentucky. It's a country in the Midwest of the USA, and I'm joined by some of my sisters here. And I could tell you what our organization means for Black women and how Mandela inspired that legacy, but I would rather they help me do it. And so I'm going to begin with our International Shiro Sisterhood host, Angela Sale, who had the meeting Mama Mandela at the Million Woman March in 1997 here in the USA. Thank you.
Greetings, family. Here in the heart of America, and ironic for me personally that I was a student in Kentucky back in 1997, which is the first time that I laid eyes on Mama Winnie Mandela. She graced 2.5 million Black women right here on this soil in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and she inspired us. And what many people don't know is that the South African government did not want Mama Winnie to come to that event. And it was petitioned that she come. And they said, well, we'll allow her to come after some pressure from the women's organizations here, but she will not be allowed to speak because our government was afraid of the power of the words of Mama Winnie Mandela to speak to the masses of Black women. And we charged the government of South Africa, okay, we will let the people here know that we are not going to buy any South African wine. We won't buy any more products if Mama Winnie Mandela is not allowed to come here. She will come and she will speak. And as it were, she came, she spoke, and she inspired me as a young woman. And it's interesting how life comes around full circle, that we're here in this moment at this time speaking her name. And one of her favorite quotes that I would just like to leave you with before I pass this to our next Shiro, pull it up, is that basically, she said if she had to do it all over again, she would do everything just the same. And so Mandela. Mandela. Yes. Next, we're gonna pass it to our sister, Miss Mickey Smith, to give a few words about Mama Winnie.
Hello, everyone. How are you out there? And as it relates to power, as it relates to rebuking the system, I stand on the shoulders of Mama Winnie. Just to know that she would go in and take the children away from abuse. And it was by any means necessary. She got an award for human rights, the John F. Kennedy Award. I believe that was back in 1985. And if she was accused of violating human rights, then why would she even get an award? So for me, being in the space, dealing with youth, I would do the same thing. I would go in and I would rescue my babies. And yeah, I'm not going to say that I would not set them on fire, but I would say not for when it comes to our babies. And again, we stand on the shoulders of fabulous women, and Mama Winnie, she was one of them. And we will continue to move forward in her legacy, her honor, and we will pay homage. But no one would know if we did burn love. Peace.
Peace, everyone. I'm Tiva Badu. I watched a movie about Winnie Mandela. That's when I really, I guess, learned a little bit about her. Because of course, I just knew she was Mandela's wife. I, as a Black woman, admire the fact that she didn't stand in the shadow of her hood. She made a legacy. She made a legacy of her own, and I appreciate her for that. And just knowing we could do anything that she did and more, and we stand on her shoulders. And today is her born day, so you know, happy heavenly birthday, or wherever she is in the ancestral realm.
Absolutely. Every day that you celebrate, every day that you acknowledge, every day that you remind yourself of the fact that this person exists in the world, it's like a in the world you don't die and you are forgotten. And how could we ever be? So we're here today all the way in the U.S. The Global African Union, our sisterhood is an international sisterhood in over 16 countries. And we live on these ideals. We live on the ideals, and we use Mama Winnie Mandela's life as an inspiration because we understand the importance of keeping her memory alive, of celebrating the best of her, learning from who she had to be in the midst of the environment during the times that she had to survive, learning from the best of her. And we continue to do that. So we're not here to create a memorial and a statue. We are a living testament to the work that she did, and we pay homage by doing that work. So if you're an global African woman out there and you want to be a part of us, you can come and pull up your sleeves and do that work with us in over 16 countries around the world. For those who bully us, in our ranks, I'll see her down in South Africa. I'll be with her this November 5th through the 9th. I'll be in South Africa, in Johannesburg, in Soweto, where Mama Winnie Mandela fought those fights. We'll be there. We'll use art as a tool to illuminate the transitions and the transformations that we need to take place in our community. So if you're an artist, and you're looking to use art as a tool for liberation, art as a tool for public health and sustainable development, just like Mama Winnie Mandela did. When she used her mouth as her weapon, like Ferdozi said, when we acknowledge her memory as a weapon, All these things are art forms. And so we want to teach you that art, and we're going to be doing it internationally. People from all over the world are gathering in South Africa. We're going to be on the footsteps of Constitution Hill. We're going to Turquoise Harmony Institute. We're going to the colored township of El Dorado Park. And then, of course, we're going to do a day of service with Mam Tunokwe, another shero that's using her art to help liberate our community, just like Mama Winnie Mandela. And so a Mandela to her, hard as a rock. We feel your power and we'll live in your legacy.
Thank you, Kim. The audio wasn't very good, so I'm just going to remind everybody that from the 1st to the 9th of November, the Global African Sheroes will be in South Africa. We will be working together with the Nelson Mandela Foundation, Turquoise Harmony, and I hope that we could probably draw in Takano on the work that we want to do in terms of art for social development, and possibly use Mama Winnie as one of the themes for the day. So we thank you, Kim, and thank you for allowing all the sheroes to share with us their contributions and their memories and their thoughts, which was so very, very special. Thank you so much. And now I'd like to come to Mam Dinan Shlope, who is going to render a poem and tell us about her story. Thanks, ma'am. Welcome.
Wathinta abafazi, wathinta imbokodo, uzokufa. Umopa sopa, 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 wathinta abafazi, wathinta imbokodo, uzokufa. Umopa sopa. Amandla sithi ngawethu ngoba sikhumbula igorhakazi umama uNomzamo, intombi yaseBhizana eMampondweni. Xa sithetha ngaye sithetha ngemini yakhe yokuzalwa. We've decided to come together on a day when she was born. Very often people talk about the day somebody passed away, and that is important too, but I like to talk about that morning when she was born. That's why then I start with a gentle poem about that morning when she was announced by the birds of heaven, singing songs to tell them that a great gift was going to be handed over to the Madigizela family, that she had gifts in her hands. She was going to be a nation builder. She had those eyes that looked at her parents and looked at the whole nation to say, I am here. The kind of eyes that said, look at me, recognize me. From the very beginning, she was like that. So I write a little poem like this to honor her, a great, great woman. We must remember she was once a child. Umama Winnie uNomzamo. I love her first name, uNomzamo, because it's the one who keeps on with her endeavors, who keeps on trying, and doesn't stop. Kwavakala ngeentaka zezulu kwakuthi qheke ukusa zankiloza zenje njeya ukubulisa umsobomvu oqaqambe into esisimanga. Kuba kaloku ngaloo ntsasa kwakubabalwe oomadikizela emampondweni, babezalelwe intokazana, imbelukazi, inkosazana, intyatyambo emanzandonga. Hayi obobuhle yeka oloncumo. Oh he, la mehlo mahle athi ndijonge, apho ebulisa unina noyise ade amthembise wonke umbo nomxesibe ukuba intokazi lena ifika ifunjathiswe izipho nobulumko bokwakha izizwe nezizwana. OkaMandela uRholihlahla woyisakala kukuzibamba, wazibona selesondela naye kuloo mlilo wothando. Umanyano lwabo lwabazisela abantwana uZinzi noZenani. Kodwa wathula unomzamo waba ngumama, wakhula waba ngumama wesizwe. Abaninzi bayamazi kumhlanje na ngoba kaloku wayexhobe efamacala ngemfundo, wayexhobe efamacala ngokuzimisela, engumama wesizwe, esiwa evuka imini nobusuku, esilwa nenkohlakalo, intshutshiso, ikratshi, intshutshiso yorhulumente wocalucalulo, ubandlululo. Wangena ephuma etulongweni kodwa wathi unotshe, asoze nindigqibe, anindazi kakuhle, ndakhiwe ngentsimbi enzima, ndingumadikizela mna, ndijongisiseni. Namhlanje uyifincile iminyaka engama-85, iminyaka apho esiphe ubulumko, uthando, ubukhokheli obusisimanga. Kunamhlanje nje sithi kuye siyakhahlela, sithi halala nomzamo, sithi halala Winnie Madikizela Mandela, ntombi entle, mbelukazi yeAfrika. iAfrika iyazingca ngawe, ndencinceleli. Umama Winnie, she was an amazing woman. I met her when I was living in Alexander Township. I had been quite a late bloomer, and by the time I was part of the Women's Federation, we met people like Mama Winnie, we met Mama Albertina Sisulu, we met Mama Utogomngoma, and they talked to us, they taught us discipline, they taught us to be serious about the work that was being done, and we shouldn't be going around flaunting that we are in the Women's Federation. No, that's not a joke. Our lives were on the line, and everybody else's life was on the line, and to arrive on time at meetings, and also to know that you don't go around talking about information that you're not supposed to talk about. Those kinds of disciplines, information that we needed to know as young people joining the struggle. I remember a day when there was a march, and then we were pushed away by the police, and there was barbed wire everywhere. And then we were going to a funeral. We used to go to funerals almost every weekend. That is why I wrote the poem that I wrote in tribute to my mother, The Wedding Dancer. And when we carried those coffins and we were running, marching and going to that funeral and coming back, and the police were always there, always there. If you didn't die, you went to the next funeral. Another thing I remember about Mama Winnie is when people were tortured and harassed by the police in the early hours of the morning, 4 a.m., she would leave her bed and go and be there in squatter camps where people were suffering. She was a social worker to the core. It was not just a nice job. It was not a status thing. She was a social worker to the core. And she was there with people. She was fighting with the police. She looked them straight. Maybe they would arrest her, maybe not. But she was there fighting for the people. People hid behind her, and they knew that she meant business when she said freedom in our lifetime. Freedom in our lifetime. Another thing that Mama Winnie was amazing about is the way she loved her children. Let's be proud of her being a mother of the nation, but a mother to her daughters. She loved her children, Mama Winnie, and I'm so proud of her for that, because sometimes we lose the fact that you've got your own biological children. Sometimes you spend your love and your affection and your leadership caring for everybody else apart from your own children. She loved her children, and I'm grateful to her for that, because that is something that she showed us who were still going to become mothers, you see. And when an old man spoke to us at a wake at my mother's funeral, he said something that I never forget. I repeat very often. Tears were running down his cheeks and disappearing in his white beard. And he said, "Okubuhlungu, kungafa isikhukukazi, amachwane ayasabalala." When the mother hen dies, the chicks go helter-skelter. When our mothers die, we must never go helter-skelter. Mama Sisulu, Mama Winnie Mandela, Mama Nokukhanya Luthuli, Mama Fatima Mere, Mama Helen Joseph, we must remember them knowing that they did not want us to go helter-skelter because they've joined the realm of the ancestors. They are with us in the journeys that we are traveling today. in the journeys of so much corruption and lies and disgust, and the way women are hated so much in this lifetime. And we have to deal with it. It is, I'll talk about it a bit later. Let me leave it here now and just say I'm grateful that we are honoring Mama on the day of her birth, her arrival into this world. The birds of heaven are hearing us. Even at this hour, they know that we are honoring one of the most amazing, amazing icons, pathfinders, bearers of light. Intokazi ephethe ukukhanya, Mama Winnie Nomzamo Madikizela Mandela. And she was not an appendage of anybody. And Datu Mandela, he knew that he would never have had a free Nelson Mandela campaign without Mama Winnie. Would never have happened. And all the leaders who might pretend they don't know that, they can pretend, it's up to them, it's okay. But we know that there never would have been a free Nelson Mandela campaign if Mama Winnie was not at the forefront fighting.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you, Mama. Sandile, we are ready for you with your wonderful poem, sir. May we see you? If you unmute yourself and if we can see you on camera. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It is such a great honor to be here this evening in the name of our stalwart, Winnie Nomzamo Madikizela Mandela. I really don't know why I'm here, but I'm really honored. I feel very, very small being here in the company of such beautiful and illustrious minds and spirits that uplift so many people, spirits that uplift me as a human being, as an individual. I will just get straight into the poem so that I don't indulge in cheap talk. Song for Nomzamo, for the freedom fighter Nomzamo Winnie Madikizela Mandela. Ancestors, sweep the ground clean. I hear your resonant voices. The family poets are the most prominent. Nomzamo is home. Nomzamo is home. She has entered the gates of the elders. Sing epic songs, beloved matriarchs. Hear your child calling. Enter the dance arena, beloved patriarchs. Your alluring festival of laughter, love, graces the feasting. Come along and enjoy the festival. Come along and enjoy the festival. Your song is for the ages. Your majestic ancestral rhymes. You kissing, lifting head to the heavens. Burning incense, cleansing and atonement rituals. Returning to where the navel is buried. She is safe at peace. She is safe at peace. Farewell, freedom storm, Uhuru hurricane, farewell. Let it thunder, let it devour them. 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 Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sandila. We just want to show the clip of your article that you had written. Justine, if we could just have a look at that. Thank you, Justine. So if we just move up, a life filled with struggle, more. So Sandila, talk to us about your work and your writing, particularly of Mama Winnie.
Thank you so much, Ferdoza. Thank you so much to the entire team and the panel and whoever is listening. Thank you so much. I was struck by several issues when Mama Winnie left us. One of them was how it seemed fashionable to criminalize the struggles of a people who were oppressed, how it had become fashionable to throw stones at those men and women who lost almost everything fighting a very brutal, a very strong, a very dehumanizing enemy whose manifestations were politically summarized in the tyranny of the apartheid state in its various machinations. I saw in Mama Winnie an opportunity to reflect on what it meant to be a liberated people, but also on what it meant to fight for the freedoms, some of which we enjoy today, and many of which are yet to arrive. The figure of Winnie Mandela, Madikizela Mandela, epitomizes so much that talks to us about the rage that we should not forget, the rage that we should not abandon, the rage to fight for injustice, to fight against injustices, no matter who is in charge of the country, no matter the garb or the garment that our leaders are wearing, no matter the good or the big talk that they throw us at Viva Mandela rallies or at election rallies as it is happening at the moment. We must constantly ask ourselves, was this all in vain? And what is it that we were fighting for? What is it that remains unfulfilled? Is it possible that ours is a revolution whose major cardinal imperatives have been betrayed? Why and how can we be so afraid to confront the contradictions that still obtain in our country, particularly as they relate to the fundamentals of the struggles that gave rise to figures like Umama Winnie? Why do we forget to remember? How can we forget to remember? This is Winnie Madikizela Mandela time. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you so much. So we're going to go back to Mondlina Nhlope, who was going to tell us, continue that conversation. I think the thing about the celebration of life, which is as important as the stories that we need to share with our children and the young people, not only of South Africa, but I think globally, so that we continue in the spirit of Mama Winnie. And I want to just say what she said at some point in 1962. She said, "I will not allow the selflessness efforts of my husband and his friends to be abandoned. I will continue the struggle for a free and equal South Africa." And I think that is really what we know. And as Lebu said earlier, so much of that story has not been told, has not been shared with a younger generation. And Sislina and Shlope, I think this is very much your story, to make sure that we continue that story, that we teach our children. So I'm passing the baton back to you.
Yes. Thank you so much, and thank you to the Shiros who have been joining us. I'm so proud of them, and also but Sandile siyabonga kakhulu insizwe yakithi siyabonga. There is such a mammoth task that awaits us. And we who have the privilege of working with a lot of young people, from the primary schools to the high schools to universities to postgraduate students that we work with, we always encourage them to find out about the people that came before us. One of the tributes we had a few years ago, our festival, the theme was the Bones of Memory. And the Bones of Memory, it's a song I wrote when I facilitated the Truth and Reconciliation testimonies of women in Constitution Hill. Because I don't know if you remember, during the Truth and Reconciliation testimonies, it was always men, and the women were the wife of, the daughter of, the cousin of, or the grandmother of, and always there were appendages to the freedom fighters. And women fought for freedom. That's a fact. And women continue to fight for the betterment of society today. And that's extremely important then for us. For me, I thought it was a great honor to facilitate that session. And I wrote that song, The Bones of Memory. And I was very, very happy that we were able to record on one of my CDs that is called a Hope Song with Putbegi Koza. And every time I listen to that song, The Bones of Memory, it also talks about some stories that need to be told. Some are stories that are funny, almost unbelievable, but they happened. Some of the stories are so sad, they break your heart, but they are part and parcel of the bones of memory. And Sis Lebu talked earlier on about the politics of erasure, how we forget people who were on the journey with us. And one of those people for me is Mama Nogukhanya Luthuli. And Umapengu, her name was telling. Ugukhanya means someone who brings out light. And I like our African names because they say something. Our indigenous names from any part of the world, for that matter, they say something. They're not just names that are just pretty. There's always a soul behind the name. And when we look at those names that history tends to forget, that we have to bring them back. Mourning, I always say, is boring. We can't be moaning about who forgets our Shiros. We must make sure that we bring them back. We tell their stories, her story. Tell their story. When they said a few years ago that there was the year of Nelson Mandela and Mama Nontsikelelo Albertina Sisulu, they went on and on and on and on the whole year until August. Hello, isn't it called a year, 12 months? They waited. They Mandelaized the whole year until August. And then suddenly, oh, by the way, there's a second name to this tribute. And so for me, I was repeating that, why are we scared to mention their names? Mama Sisulu, I call her Gokhagazi. The people are deceived by her gentle nature. People were deceived by that smile, by that dedication, by that focus. They were deceived. Even Mama Winnie Mandela, you often saw that smile, that focus, that knowledge that we are moving no matter what. You can bring your bulldozers, you can bring your bullets, you can bring your spies. Siyayithathi South Africa, nezimpimpi zabo zikhona. You see, we did all of that with all the liars and the spies and the bulldozers and everything they did to us. We did it, and we shall continue to deal with the tyranny of today. The tyranny that holds on to the what you call it, that puts deodorants on names. Sharpeville Day is not Sharpeville Day. Oh, you know, it's a Human Rights Day. It's so sweet, sounds very nice. And then June 16, 1976. It's a youth day. You can even have a braai if you like, and then you can get drunk if you like. No, people died fighting for our freedom. Our children died. You see, it is extremely important for us not to put perfume on these names. And those people who hated Mama Winnie, who saw only her weaknesses and never saw so many strengths that were overwhelming, they hated her, they vilified her, and then only at the end, suddenly they loved her. Our sister, our comrade. Huh? What was that about? No need for it. And even this term, when we keep saying she multiplied, if we say she multiplied, we must be consistent. We can't say it at certain times. If you really believe that she multiplied, go for it. Be part and parcel of the struggle, because the struggle is here. The struggle is never over. Let's be focused on that. And I also want to talk about the fact that people forget names and the land issues. I'm glad that they've made a film about Mama Loretta Ngobo. Mama Loretta Ngobo, one of my favorite books is called And They Didn't Die. Oh my goodness, what an amazing book. What an amazing, I recommend it so often, because women have been tilling the land. They've been making sure that the land of our ancestors is productive, is feeding masses, and they did it with a sense of dignity, with the knowledge, and they never complained. They worked and worked, and when the men were buried alive in those mines in Johannesburg, in Kimberley, in wherever the mines are, when they were looting our wealth, which they continue to do to this day, to foreign lands. When Mama Mireba Geba sang Gauteng, and she sang a song that says, our wealth is being taken with the chaba chaba. And also the men are dying, our own. You see, it's extremely important for us to remember all of that, the issues of land. Mama Sizani Ngubane died last year. She fought so hard for rural women's rights and land rights. And many people don't even know her name. So it is important then for us to think about women who have been working together. Mamu Brigeli Abam, she did a sterling job at the IEC. There are so many women that we need to honor. And so it's our business. When I honored Mama Sisulu in 2018, I sang a song, Kutenin soye ganje, ni soye gugulibisi kamalake. Mama Sisulu likohagas letu, Mama Sisiga, Kutenin soyeg, Hugolebis, Kamalake, Kutenin soyega, Hugolebis, Kamalake, Mama Mandela, Kohagas letu, Matigisela, Likohagas letu, Kutenin soyeg, Hugolebis, Kamalake. We must never fear to call out their names, to honor. Maybe let's continue to have conversations. We can come back to this poem in Zalabantu.
Thank you, ma'am. I'm wondering if anybody wants to talk about the issue of Brandfort and the renaming. And as you know, that it's just kind of been sitting there, whether we are making a mistake, whether it's the Department of Arts and Culture not getting it done. But now the local authorities in Brandfort have been wasting time on the name change. Sandile, are you aware of it? Ah, there you are, Lebo. Lebo, I wanted you to talk to us about Brandfort, because you see that it's been back in the paper.
Yeah, I mean, I think we are a very funny nation as South Africans. So in terms of, you know, and again, for those, we can speak about erasure, you know, and you can see how the patriarchal machinery will have to die and rise again. I don't know whether it will rise after 3 days or 5 days before it allows to do the right thing. You must remember that even after her death and at the anniversary, the 50th anniversary, Mamuti, we were together when we visited Brandfort, and we visited her house in Brandfort. It lay derelict. We are a nation without leadership. We are a nation without a conscience. We are a nation without love. I cannot believe that with a country that has gone through what it has gone through, we are still debating whether or not Brandfort can be named, you know, after her, whether airports can be named after her, whether her house can be a museum. And it's only a country without love for itself that enters into those kinds of debates. It's only a country that is in a vacuum. But I'm not surprised. You know, I mean, you saw what happened during COVID, where artists had to basically stage a sit-in so that we recognize the plight, where money that was meant for artists, we got to hear that it disappeared. You know, it was awarded. We are a country, we are almost like a shell of a country, and our soul has departed. And yeah, I mean, big up for the EFF for naming their headquarters. And I think that is why even when I started, I said, you know, her persecution was not only around during apartheid, it's also happened within her party. I mean, the fact that we are dilly-dallying shows that even amongst those that are now in power, there is no commitment, you know, to honoring her, because we are busy with our patriarchal tendencies. So it's a shame. And this morning I was interviewed on one radio station, and before then they were announcing that the president is going to go to the Winnie Mandela informal settlement. And the irony for me did not even pass me by, you know, to be saying it is actually in this hot debate and hot potato around land. It is the people who have taken over a piece of land that named it Winnie Mandela because they recognize her struggle. And you've got the president of the country going to the Winnie Mandela informal settlement, but we cannot decide that an airport can be Winnie Mandela Airport. We cannot decide that Brandfort, when it is so historic, you know, that the town where the apartheid machinery banished her there. I mean, I you know, anyway, for those, yeah, what do they say? Cry the beloved country.
Cry the beloved country.
Absolutely, absolutely, my sister. I think also one of the sentiments of the local people there, they were also saying you can name Brandford after Mama Winnie Madikizela Mandela, but when you rename a place, make sure that people get the services that they deserve. That also is important. For me, that is something extremely important, because the name alone is not enough for me. And number two, yeah, the name alone is not enough. And number two, when we want to keep on saying these names, let's remember their teachings, you see, and have platforms where we have intergenerational dialogue. For me, unless our organization, Gcinamasiko Arts and Heritage Trust, is involved in intergenerational dialogue, unless we continue to do that, I don't see why we should exist. There's no need for us to exist. Our job is to make sure that the older generation interacts with younger people and pass on the information. You see, I'm no longer a youth. I'm a grown-up woman. I've got these experiences. I've got the stories of my people. I was doing the talk about Mama Charlotte Manyama the other day, and there's so many young people that don't even know who she was. You see, because we've got this thing of not talking about our own sheroes and heroes. And unless we do that, and when I say a person like AC Jordan is my heavyweight, that's my Shakespeare. Your heavyweight, uban loyo, abamaz uban AC Jordan. You see, that's extremely important. Let's talk about them. Let's talk about Omam Francis Bard. Let's talk about them. You know, Dalsi September. Why is a movie about Dalsi September shown at most weird hours on our television, instead of having pop-up screens in rural areas for people to see and to learn about Dalsi September? Because somebody worked very, very hard to bring back that name to be in our present day consciousness and discussion. So for me, the people like NFVF, they must make it their business to have rural screens where people are telling stories. You see, some of the movies that we've performed in are winning awards all over the world, but our local people haven't seen them. What Donald Trump nonsense is that?
But Mamudina, I mean, I think, you know, when you speak about places like the NFVF doing that, we need to deploy the right people to the right organizations and places. And we need to deploy the right people at the right places. And until we do so, we are going to have then people leading from ego. We are going to have all of us leading from ego because we will not understand our own mandate of what we've got. I mean, it didn't take much but vision to do the Riabua critical dialogues, you know, because it was important to do so. And so when you don't deploy the right people to the right places, when we are not moving from a point of ethical leadership, not going to be able to deploy the right people to the right places. And that is why right now you even have some communities complaining. We are going into local government elections. I think even the COVID protocols are going to be relaxed. We are going to act as if we don't have COVID anymore because people want to be put in positions. But the servitude, the ethical leadership, getting into a community like Brantford, making sure that people have services, getting into positions, making sure, I mean, we are a country where people abuse the money for PPE. I was so scared of COVID. I did not know that there are people sitting there and saying, okay, how do we eat? There's a virus, how do we eat? And it shows you the kind of people that we have deployed, you know, the kinds of people that we have deployed. We've got vaccine hesitancy because we had digital vibes. We had people who were buying smacks appliances at a time when there are professionals out there and expertise to do the kind of communications that needed to be done. The likes of those were going out there and developing Zazi for children and looking for support to develop that. But we had money for VBS that bought smack stoves. So, you know, I hope that part of what we've been told about clean up, not only at national government, but in all spheres of government, in all spheres of social institutions, we are going to have to interrogate the whole issue of what is ethical leadership. The dialogues that you are talking about are dialogues that if we really wanted to retain, you know, any of our history, which is mainly oral, we are going to have to fund and support. But we are decrying the lack of ethical leadership in the country. And I think that is one of the things that if we were to honor people like Winnie, we need to address. It's a moment of reflection, of introspection, a moment of unlearning and relearning, because GPS signal is lost in South Africa. We are GPS right now.
This road has no name. This road has no name. But the most important thing as well is that we came from a place where the commitment and humility and working with the people was a norm. And then we got to a place where we want more money and positions and expensive this and expensive that, trade your old wife for a new wife and a younger model, and all of these things that have been going on, or falling asleep in parliament. And we think, when is the retirement age? Excuse me. And so, all of these things that are taking place. So we are dealing with all of that right now. And people are fighting and killing each other for positions of being a counselor, in a small, you don't have to have any skills, you don't have to have any level of education. You just chosen, you're a counselor, suddenly you're earning so much money, and you're walking in a particular way, and you are dealing with your people in a very dismissive manner. And if people don't like you, they kill you, and then the next one comes in. I'm thinking, I'm amazed that anybody even wants to be a counselor. I'm scared of dying. I've got so much work to do, you know. So we are living in very, very strange times. The GPS keeps saying this road has no name. Road has no name. And we've got to catch a wake up. And in the small spaces where we are, we've got to brighten those corners and work. You don't need to be in a big position of power in order to function, to know that you are called. We are called, we've got work to do. Unless we've got that clearly, maybe God has made a mistake by keeping us alive then. If we are still alive, we've got the energy, we've got thoughts, and the realization that the struggle is not over. We are called. We've got to move on. Thank you so much.
Brother Sandile, please share your thoughts. I know the sisters are doing so well. It's just so empowering and it's so exciting, but put in your voice.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, but yes, Sandile.
Yes, my dear sister. I'm enjoying this so much, particularly because I'm a student and I'm listening to my elders sharing so much, and I continue to learn from them in various ways. Thank you so much for the leadership. You raise poignant points on issues of ethics, issues of integrity, issues of purpose that is accountable purpose, visionary fortitude that is epitomized in the life and harsh times of Umama Winnie, Madikizela Mandela. You said, Firdoza, I must comment about the naming of a building by the EFF in honor of Umama Winnie. It's remarkable.
Let's ask Justine to just show that we were showing it earlier. No, not necessarily by EFF. I was talking about Brandfort and the fact that it had been renamed. But today, EFF, as you know, they had their manifesto and then they also named the building. So Justine will just bring that up. But please talk to us. I don't know what your position is.
Thank you very much. No, my position is that in both cases, in the naming, there's a possibility for reimagination. There's a possibility for those who name after a name as illustrious as that of Mama Winnie to live up to the name. In other words, these should not be token gestures of populist rhetoric, populist gestures for votes by any one of them who has decided to name either a street or a headquarter in the name of Umama Winnie Madikizela Mandela. It's very, very important that the integrity, the vision of accountable, people-centered leadership comes through and is integral to the naming. Otherwise, this is all song and dance about nothing. And I mean it, I say this with the greatest respect to all the parties concerned. Let us interrogate our intentions and the seriousness that is required in South Africa today. It is urgent to relook at the fundamental mistakes of a very, very bloody transition. I'm calling it a bloody transition because when you look at the plight of the poor, who are still predominantly Black in South Africa, women, there's so much blood in our hands. So talk of a miraculous transition, talk of a rainbow nation. These are issues, these are beautiful sounding words that we must interrogate with meaningful action on the ground. This is no time for us to worship leadership, to create cults out of leaders, to create cults out of factions, as is the case in the ANC, for instance. This is time to reflect on what are we all about as South Africans today. Why is it so urgent for us to do what we must do to tackle the monster of corruption and so-called state capture, but it is not as urgent to deal with the endemic historical social injustices that see certain areas of this country perpetually in the dark, not as a metaphor, but literally, because delivery is not there. In the Western Cape, you hear of sewerage being a common denominator in the streets of Black townships to this day. So when we evoke the spirit of a great exemplary ancestor like Umama Winnie, we ought to be very serious about our intentions. This is not the time to throw lies at our people, to throw empty slogans at our people. Let us wake up as well to the empty slogans that our cult figures in politics, in commerce, and other organizations that pretend to be for the good of the country, for the good of the Constitution, throw at us. Let us challenge those organizations, even those who rise against issues that are obvious. Because corruption is very obvious and it's easy to tackle from that point of view. Poverty, Black poverty in particular, the abuse of women in rural areas, particularly Black women in rural areas, gays and lesbians, and so on. Those are issues are not as obvious to us, all of us for that matter. And as a result, they call for a greater amount of sincerity, a greater amount of being genuine and not just singing, empty songs just because it is beautiful to sing those words and we get an applause for doing so. This is not time for wanting an applause. This is time to do what we ought to do and do it right away. It is urgent. We have got major pandemics that perplex this country, such as gender-based violence. And when we talk to the spirit of Umama Winnie, we must try to be better human beings, better citizens, and fight for the end of such pandemics that continue to brutalize our transition. Our transition, for that matter, is not peaceful in my view. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. This has been such an important conversation. I want to thank you all. And as we consider our closing remarks, I will start with you, Sis Lebo, if you are there, just in closing. We usually like to end the F show with the word F. So I say F is for freedom and F might be for friendship, but I don't know what your F is for. So can we start with you, Lebo?
My F is for being fierce.
Do you want to have a closing remark?
Just to say that this has been great to listen and to be in conversation. And I am also so glad to see that there has been so much coverage. My only regret is the fact that we are honoring one of our own when they have departed. I wish that, this work had happened while she was still alive, but knowing her, I'm sure she is smiling from heaven. and really glad that we finally saw what she was seeing all along.
Thank you, Lebo. I remember one of the people at Takano saying that when Winnie said we gave too much during the negotiations, he said he didn't quite understand what that meant. And now when he looks at it, he understands it so clearly. And you're right. She is watching over us, and she is saying, finally, she's probably
they are getting
laughing at us. Finally, we get it.
Yeah.
Mandela, I'm going to give you a closing remark because I know that our Mama Trinan Shlope is going to give us a wonderful closing. You're on mute, my dear. You're on mute, Sandile.
Apologies. Ngibonga kakhulu. Amagama angenawo nali ikheli lami ngenhla. Because
Our sister, your final, because you know you are one of those as well. You, that icon, that mentor, that woman that just lifts our spirits and helps us and guides us and takes us through these conversations that are so difficult. But you do it with such poise and grace and words and love and generosity. So I want to thank you for tonight. And I want to leave you with giving us the last words.
Thank you. Thank you, my sister. For me, the F is firebrand, and the other F, let our efforts be fruitful. If they are not fruitful, sidlala magendo. Inzala abantu, the life givers. Women of my country, makhosikazi, lift your voices and be heard. Ninzala bantu, you are the life givers, daughters of Africa, empresses and warrior queens. You have every right to be here as happy citizens of the human race. What is it that gives murderers and rapists such a special place on the sunny side of the street, protected and forever said to be innocent until proven guilty? Police are forever investigating at a chameleon's pace. Magistrates are granting bail even at the expense of future victims. Justice for some cannot be justice for all. Ninzala bantu, you are the life givers, naturers, nurturers, nation builders, first teachers and instillers of self-love and confidence, celebrating every milestone in a little child's journey through life. Fathers can choose to stay or run, but mothers, grandmothers, sisters and aunts have to stay to keep the fires burning for those little precious beings from the spirit world. Their ancestors reborn and recognized easily in their first toothless smiles. From birth to adulthood, sacrifices are at every turn. Ninzala bantu, you are the life givers. You must declare a state of emergency. Say enough. Enough of all this blood and tears drenching our soil, wailing voices, shattered dreams and broken bodies by men who were born, loved and raised by you. Erupting volcanoes of deep hatred, burning lava directed at the very source of recreation. The God-given gift of bringing life into this world is covered in disgraceful, abominable acts of war. Even the tiny earthworm knows. It knows that woman destruction equals self-destruction for the whole human race. Ninzala bantu, you are the life givers, here for a reason to be happy and proud, content in your efforts to uplift humanity in the worst and the best of times. Your voices must be listened to, bringers of light, healing, and you are the central fireplace of hope. In the palm of your hands lay the unique map for the future. Embedded in your womb is the love unlimited. Now enlighten me. What is there not to love? What is there not to admire? What is there not to treasure? What to honor, to shelter, to preserve and adore? Women of the world, you are the life givers. Why can't the world powers see all the hatred directed at you? Surely this calls for a long overdue state of emergency. Worse than the most potent virus that ever was. We see it in the hating, the hurting, the raping, the killing, the destruction of womankind. Wake up, humanity, wake up, take heed. This heralds the very end of the human race. Where, I ask, where are the angry voices and actions of men who love and respect women? Not voices of support, but voices that demand change with more fervor and urgency than the passion they display when they go to war, armed to the teeth. Passion and wholehearted focus they display for sports at the Olympics and FIFA World Cups. Even in the gambling dens, the stock exchange, acquiring races, riches, and rising to positions of power. Where is that fighting spirit to cherish and honor the woman race? Bring back that fervor, the unyielding reverence, the love, the peace, the nation building. I implore you, bring it back to us. Bring it back home to Mama. Ninzalabantu, bring it back to us. Bring back all that love. We are the givers of life. We deserve more.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much, everybody. I think what a powerful note to end on.
Siyabonga for this platform, and we salute Mama Winnie Nomzamo. So her name saying you keep on trying and trying, because all the obstacles are stacked. They're against us. It doesn't mean we don't move forward. We mean business. We want to make a change. We want to work together, and collaboration is always a beautiful kind of jewelry to wear.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Siyabonga. And I'm looking forward to seeing more of those documentary films, Lebu, and we need to show them to more people of all ages, because we have to remember, and we have to also plant new seeds to tell new stories.
Yes. And I think that's what we want to say to Tekano. Thank you so much, Lebo, when you talk about having people in the right places who have the vision, who have the commitment, and who have the funding, so they can make sure that the good work happens. Funding, that's what we're all looking for.
And so, thank you, Justine. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Justine. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much.
And the team, Kim, with your team, with the sisters there, the Shiros. Bravo. Siyabonga. Siyabonga. So spirit for those, keep on. The struggle is never over.
Lebo, are you still with us?
Wait.
Thank you. Are we? Okay.
Siyabonga. Magwande.